Hello and welcome to Onesies, a podcast where we talk about the one season wonder or not wonder shows of the past. My name is Andrew.
My name is Emily.
And we're going to get started talking about Free Spirit from 1989. It aired on ABC and it stars Corinne
Bohrer. I don't think it's Boner. That's an H. That's not an N. Bohrer.
We'll see if we edit this part. Franc
Luz.
Franc.
What? Can you read? Are you okay?
I can read, but is everybody going to get this pronunciation?
I think it's okay. Franc Luz, but it could be Franc.
Franc or Franc Luz or Luck, or is it? It is a Z.
It's a Z.
Messing up. I'm not looking at the cast list right now.
Oh, that's okay.
And it also stars. I'm going to see how I can do this. Alyson Hannigan. Is that how we're going to pronounce her name?
It's Alyson Hannigan. She's a fairly well-known person now.
She is. Paul Scherrer.
I would say Scherrer.
Sure. And then Edan Gross, who is not related to Michael Gross or Ari Gross, which bummed me out because I wanted this to be Ari Gross's. See, this is why
I don't even know who that is, so I can't help you. Sorry.
He was in The Experts with John Travolta. What did you do with your life? Good grief.
I haven't seen nearly enough John Travolta, only the right ones, like Battlefield Earth. The show is essentially a struggling family, a single father, recently single, and his 3 children, and the witch who becomes their housekeeper. Pretty simple, straightforward plot device, I guess.
Yes, I appreciated that it was a working from home show back when that was a 1989. It's what?
Everybody had an office at their house. Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes place in Connecticut, which I didn't realize until the 3rd episode. Oh, so we're going to be breaking these into chunks. So you only have to watch the first 3 episodes to know what we're talking about on this episode. And you can actually watch this on ctv.ca. There's a lot of Sony shows that are only on Canadian streaming. And unlike the BBC, all you need to do to stream ctv.ca, if you're not in the Great North, is to get yourself a VPN. You can watch it for free. So, so first impressions of the pilot. Let's do this. This is also the first time Emily and I have ever recorded a podcast together. So it's also her first podcast.
And Andrew, this is the first time I've heard your voice in 8 years. It's been so long. It's so weird.
I'm pretty sure I had some professional crisis where we talked on the phone within the last 8 years. But yes.
And you sent me something that you did, some presentation that you did, and I was like, wow, that's right, that's Andrew, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway,
this also means that she doesn't listen to my other 2 podcasts.
I have no idea.
See, there you go. That are linked to on my blog that you also don't read.
I do read your blog because I always am I haven't seen that movie or I haven't seen that TV show. And when you were doing Doctor Who stream or whatever, I was reading reviews of your Doctor Who episodes and disagreeing with you, but whatever, it's fine. Agree to disagree.
Some of us think Matt Smith is hot and some of us don't.
And I'm firmly in the don't camp. Firmly.
Have you forgiven me for giving you that Matt Smith figure yet? That you didn't take with you when you left? Anyway, so we're getting off track here. Instead, let's talk about the pilot.
Yes.
Free Spirit is from I already forgot the guy's first name, but his last name's O'Donnell. I think it's Tim O'Donnell gets the creator credit. And he did some writing. It looks like his first credits were on Gloria, the All in the Family spinoff. Ooh. And and he did he worked on Growing Pains and Just the 10 of Us. So he did a bunch of ABC 80s sitcoms, which makes sense because Free Spirit is sort of like a pre-Disney ABC sitcom in that they still acknowledge sex exists, but it's in that really sort of creeper 80s teen way where the teenage son gets to be kind of a perv and the daughter is a freak for liking boys or something like. So it's very, sex negative, but grooming positive, I guess. So okay, so let's do 3 observations about the pilot. Go.
I love Corinne Bohrer. I love her face. She makes me happy. She is, I think, really good for this role in that kind of, I think we talked about pre-podcast, that sort of manic pixie girl thing where she's just sort of wild and free and shaking things up a little bit in the family. I think Alyson Hannigan is capital K kid acting in this. Which, I haven't seen How I Met Your Mother, but I remember she kind of acted the same way in the American Pie movies. I was a teenager when they came out. I saw them, whatever. I don't know that she's gotten over that, but I hope she has. But I know that she won some Kids' Choice Award for something for acting in this series, as did the older brother, Paul Scherrer. And I don't know. I had the same observation about the home office situation that was happening with Dad in his law firm or his law practice that he was trying to establish in this new town. I thought it was odd. The first scene you see, they kind of pull back and you see that he's in his office, but they pull back and suddenly there's a staircase and a couch and the family's just running around. I thought that was I just think that's weird. I'm glad that doesn't exist anymore so much. At least he's not Kaz doing gynecological exams in the basement.
Okay, so I don't know how you left out mullet land, because every man on this show has a mullet of some kind or another. Franc Luz, yes.
Sure.
He's got an amazing head of hair there. The sons just have regular mullets, but Franc has like it's more bouffant. It's a bouffant mullet. Like it's kind of an oval. It's, spherical. It's very impressive hair.
It reminded me of the dad from Blossom.
Yes.
He also had hair like that. Just
was gorgeous. That actually Ted Wass or?
I don't know.
Okay. What else did I notice? I noticed that, so when Winnie, that's Corinne's character, we're going to be on a first name basis with her, apparently. Also, that was one of the reasons that we picked this. We have a list of shows we're going to do, and this one came up, and I'm like, I love her. I remember when she was on The Flash a year after this, when I was 12. It was so exciting. And then you see her in other stuff, and she's really funny. Like, she's in one or two scenes in this Martin Short and Ned O'Toole movie called Cross My Heart, and she's just awesome. In her one scene, she plays the neighbor of the Martin Short character, I think. And Yeah. So, I mean, and then she's Veronica Mars's mom on that show, and she's been on a lot of stuff since, but this was one of her this was one of her top line sitcoms or top billing sitcoms. So, when she gets there, she's only supposed to be there to help the youngest son learn how to bowl, but he wants her to stay. And whenever she talks about staying, the sky lightning out the window, the sky rattles to tell her not to, which sort of implies that her boss is from above.
That's what I have that written down. I have that written down. You can't see it because it's blurry. But yes, I thought it was odd that she was a witch and that maybe some heavenly force was directing her.
Well, that gets resolved in episode 2. But yeah, so that was interesting throughout. And also I'm like, does anybody see that or just her? But they finally have the dad acknowledges that it's happening later on. And one of the things that actually really works for her in this is the script is very 80s sexist, and she has her reactions to whenever those come up is really funny because sort of it's a disarming reaction in a way that sort of lets the sexism glide a bit, but she doesn't roll her eyes at it, but she does have sort of this way of drawing attention to it in her reaction, which is, cool for this. And it works better because one of the things we talked about is this is nowhere near as bad as we thought it was going to be.
I'm shocked that just the little bit of research that I did, that it was so poorly received. To the point where I looked at other sitcoms that debuted in 1989, and most of them I hadn't heard of. And so I'm kind of shocked that this debuted the same night as Family Matters.
Okay.
And I know that Family Matters, that first season was a little rough going. I haven't watched it probably since then, but so I was kind of surprised to see that this wasn't as bad. I've seen much, much worse. So the fact that this was poorly received was surprising to me.
It is. I mean, there are some very interesting special effects,
yes.
I don't know. It's like you watch it, you're trying to figure out the technology they use, but technology is a stretch because I'm assuming it's shot on video and they do these amazing composite shots, but it's just kind of this thing. It's just like, if they took the effects seriously, it would be more of a genre show. And if they took it less seriously, it'd be Small Wonder, I suppose.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's sort of in between there somewhere.
I noticed in that first scene where she shows up in Jean's bedroom, the younger son, and she uses magic to turn the lamp on, and then it explodes or something. Oops, I hit my microphone. It explodes or something, and then her shoes start on fire. It's like I could see that, and I've seen that done in other 80s sitcoms, much worse. Her shoes weren't actually on fire. But I've seen it done much worse, but for comic effect, it was done much worse. So, I mean, it was interesting, but I just don't think it was as bad as people thought.
No. And I mean, this is, late 80s, there were all the Fox startups. So, I mean, those are some bad sitcoms. There's some really shitty ones in there.
Yeah.
But speaking of the lamp, so part of the setup is that she's there because once every 100 years, when you're a witch, you get sent to Earth to answer a child's wish. And adults can't see the magic that she does, but the teenagers can. So when she turns on the lamp, I was like, well, 1889 was the last time she would have been out. So when did she learn how to turn on a lamp?
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Well, I got a lot of notes along that. I got a lot of notes about the realistic nature of her business. But yeah, so, and the pilots also got the wonderful, the problem is the little kid. Do we remember his character's name?
Gene.
You've already said that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Gene doesn't want to lose to a girl. And she's
already been assigned as his bowling rival, so he can't change it. And
she comes over to taunt him, and he's not there. So she leaves a message that he's going to get his ass kicked by a girl. And it's really toxic. It is exceptionally.
Yes.
It is exceptionally problematic.
Yes.
I don't know.
But also, can I just say that girl looks like she's like 3 years older than him. She's so much taller. She looks bigger. She looks like I don't know how old Gene is supposed to be, but he looks really small, considering his 16-year-old brother looks like he's about 30.
Well, Gene, the kid who plays Gene was 10.
Okay.
Or was either 10 or had turned 11, something in there. He was born in October 78. So yeah, and then the brother's one of your average, 19 playing 16. And then Alyson Hannigan's, I didn't check.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But she looks older than 13, but she's supposed to be 13.
Yeah. So so it's just that sort of weird 80s creep factor. And then when you think about it, now that I'm thinking about Just the 10 of Us, which is all about, isn't Just the 10 of Us is the one where they're a bunch of all the senior high school girls in it are there as perv fodder. So I guess it's not that bad. So it's a little bit better than most of that. But yeah, it's the show's from Gene's perspective for the most part, in that, the target audience is tween-age boys who don't want to lose to girls in sports, I guess.
What I read was that program, this whole series was a vehicle for him and for Corinne Bohrer. Apparently, so we watched the pilot, what we're discussing right now, but there was a pilot before this that went unaired, and Alyson Hannigan's character and I think the dad, Franc Luz's character, were different actors. Were different actors. So they replaced them, but pretty much everybody else, I guess, was disposable, and it was a vehicle for the two of them. So I think that this pilot episode that we watched sets that up nicely, that it's about their relationship. And so I read that, I think, on Wikipedia, because I'm a deep researcher.
Also, the mom divorced and left her family. So that there's
you know my feelings on this. I'm hoping that there's some episode where the mom shows up. But Wikipedia is not giving me the
promise of that. Yeah. So it's so basically Gene's very sad that mom got up and left her family of 3. And this is jumping ahead a bit, but it's unclear. It seems what happened is they all lived in New York City. The mom left, and then the dad moved them to Connecticut, where they can't keep a housekeeper because for whatever reason. And then to be a successful housekeeper for the family, you need to be a witch. And so, so we get some, funny kitchen scenes, and by the end of it, Winnie is a part of the family, and The older kids know she's a witch. They really don't actually. So now, as a segue into the next episode, they don't exploit her being a witch as much as you would think. Like, I feel like Alice on the Brady Bunch had to do more things than Winnie really has to do for the kids, right? Like,
yeah, but also she does seem to be like a replacement mom. I mean, she's making them breakfast in the morning, and she's, helping them with just day-to-day things that you would normally go to your parents for, and yes, you see her using magic to make food and using magic to do some other things. She cleans Jean's bedroom, that first thing, to prove that she's a witch, right? Again, another kind of comedic scene, not quite made me laugh out loud, but we've all been there where we're shoving all of our stuff into our closet to clean. But some of the other gags, like you said, there's some kitchen gags. One thing that I did legitimately find funny is when the older brother didn't believe that she was a witch. And so he had the chair glued to his butt. He couldn't get up. So I thought that was kind of funny. And that sort of spooked him a little bit. So anytime he doubted her existence as a witch, the chair would move a little bit closer to him. I loved that. I thought that was really clever. I mean, not clever, but for a sitcom,
right. For a single camera sitcom or whatever, a multicam sitcom from 1989, it's yeah. I mean, I think the second episode is where the first time I laughed a lot, and that was just because of the Dan Florek. So
yeah, let's move on to that episode because I had a lot of good stuff in here too.
Yeah. So yeah, Dan Florek guest stars as Bill the Sky Boss, but he's in yes, that was who was rattling thunder at her in the first episode. It wasn't God, it was Bill. And so Bill's a warlock, and he comes to Earth to give her crap about staying with this family, and he assumes the identity of one of Dad's clients, who is some real estate developer who is
not a very nice guy.
Not a very nice guy. Their project is to tear down an animal hospital and some other sort of
I think a preschool.
Yeah, a preschool and an animal hospital to put in a yuppie mini mart where you never have to leave. You can just go shop at that one mini mart. And so that whole angle was hilarious because I was like, does ABC allow this much anti-capitalism on their airwaves at this point?
Pre-Disney.
Yeah. But yeah, so Dan Florek got some laughs out of me in that one. There's some other problematic jokes that I'll get to later, but you can do your.
So we had talked about her ability to sort of make the sexism, I don't want to say work, but let it go by because it's recognized and whatever. So the first thing you see is her talking to Dan Florek as the real estate guy. And he's really gross and hitting on her and stuff. It's really gross. No, actually, wait a minute. I think she's hitting on him first to get him to stay because Thomas, the lawyer, is still not there for their meeting. So she's actually kind of flirting with him, but it does set up for when we meet him again as Bill, the Sky Boss, as you put it. I thought that was really gross and creepy, and it kind of gave me the creeps. But I love Dan Florek so much from Law and Order. I hate to admit that I'm a huge Law and Order fan. And to see him in a comedic role was chef's kiss. It was so good. Really, I just have a lot of notes about problematic things that I noticed. Besides that, first of all, the witches versus warlocks. Boys are warlocks and girls are witches. That's stupid. I mean, it's It's not too bad, but it's just stupid. He talks on the phone to a girl, Jean, about playing baseball. He gets a call from a friend. I think this is the episode where he's waiting to get on the baseball team. And so he's waiting for a phone call. Somebody calls him and says something like, "Oh, you got," and he says, "Oh, you got on the team." You can't hear the other end of the conversation. And he goes, "Oh no, you have the perfect build for blocking the plate. Well, thanks for calling, Sally," or whatever her name was. And I was like, ugh, gross. Like, ugh.
I think that's the one where I'm like, oh, and then the next joke is an ableist joke about kids too. Like, is that the one where there's a double hitter where it starts as just a regular sexist joke, but then the immediate joke afterwards is like the older brother making an ableist joke.
I don't remember that part.
Yeah.
I don't have that written down.
And then I have
something where Dan Florek is doing kind of like that ableist Donald Trump thing about AV guys. He kind of, I'm not going to do it, but he kind of, makes reference to AV guys being awkward, people who dabble in AV. I don't know if you know anything about that, Andrew, about AV guys being awkward and unusual. And then there was, oh yeah, he propositions her, right? So Bill the Sky Guy is trying to get her to go back. And he says that she says that if she can go without using her magic for 24 hours,
it's a week. It's a bad deal. It is a week.
That's a
I was just like,
time.
How are you going to do that? Like, no. Yeah.
Yeah. So if she doesn't use her powers for a week, she gets to stay. And if she does use her power, she has to go back and essentially like be his personal assistant, including like rubbing his feet.
Yes.
Oh. And what I have written down is ew. And then in parentheses, it says all 10 piggies. Ugh. So those are kind of some of the things I have written down that are gross. But I did have a couple good things too. When Bill realizes that Winnie is a part of the family and that, maybe there's something to be said for these darn human emotions. And there's this odd scene, the montage scene where he's looking at the family pictures. He's sitting on the couch and then he's sitting over here at a chair. And then he's moving around this very small room or this very small set in this case, looking at this one photo book of this family. And it's just the oddest thing, but he's miming the whole time and it's hilarious. His reactions, it's so good. It's almost a parody of a sitcom. Like, I loved it so much.
Yeah, I think that's has Dan Florek ever done any sustained sitcomming? Like, it is this weird thing where you're just seeing somebody who is definitely not approaching it from like coming up as a sitcom actor doing this, and it just makes it even funnier because you're like, oh, he's just like, oh, I'm just gonna play this broader, yeah. And then it's just hilarious because the other thing about the montage is that his page, at the beginning, he's like at the beginning, and then he's at the middle of it, and then he's at the end of it, but then he's at the middle of it again, and he's at the beginning, and then he's at the end, and then he's at the beginning. And it's like 9 shots. Like, it's a while he's looking through this book.
It's one book. It's one book. It's not a bunch of books.
He steals a picture to take with him.
Yes. And presumably this is no more than like 10 or 15 minutes that this montage is supposed to be encapsulating. Why is he moving around so much? It's so strange.
That's how he's spending his time while she's, having to clean by hand or whatever. Yeah.
I guess.
But it's also where it's also there's also a men can have feelings because it's the 80s moment, which I don't think actually started. The first time I remember, the earliest I remember that being mentioned is in Lethal Weapon, which is 1987. So I think men only got to have feelings in the 80s for like 3 years or maybe 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they draw attention to that. And I don't know. It's just
so I'm looking through his IMDb right now, and he does have some sitcom experience after this.
He got the bug. This is what got him going.
Yeah, between this and Law and Order, which was pretty quick. Well, he was on LA Law, but that's not a sitcom.
No.
But he did John Larroquette Show. He did an episode, it looks like. He did an episode of Ellen. And then he was a principal, a doctor, 2 doctors on Roseanne.
Okay.
He was on Sabrina, which is closely related to this because it's witches. But this is all after.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. And then I guess Law and Order started in the 90s. So while he was doing Law and Order, he was doing all this other sitcom stuff too. But I only know him from Law and Order. So it was odd to see him go from the stern kind of captain of the police to be this kind of goofy, broad sitcom character.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, he's a great intentional jackass. Other stuff I noticed is the magic fingers. I was waiting for that to come back, but it's not going to. Yeah. Is that they use the sort of peace sign to do their magic, and he starts it, and then she picks it up at the end. But that doesn't actually become a thing so far. I mean, it's hard to know with. I was going to say with 80s things, but it's hard to know with any TV show before streaming what order they were meant to be shown in, if any. But this does seem pretty closely tied into the pilot in that it's there is reference to the whole bowling thing. So that was all she was there for, was bowling, and this time it's the baseball. There's also the trying to think. Did you notice that Dad never had to take responsibility for not sending in the permission slip?
I did.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I did. It was weird because and there was no explanation as to why he didn't do it and why he's
a bad dad.
And but besides that, why didn't he get mad at Winnie at some point for, oh, you never do what I tell you to do. And there was,
oh no, that's the next one. You're thinking of the wedding invitation. You're skipping ahead.
Sorry. I didn't take good enough notes. I didn't have anything else for this one. There was a point at the beginning, and again, I only have the quote, "Grown-ups, they're so wise." He had made some crack about Gene being stupid, and maybe this is what you're talking about. Like, kids are so dumb or something. Yeah. And then I think Gene or Winnie said, "Oh, grown-ups, they're so wise." And Dan Florek looked like he was legitimately laughing at that line. And it made me laugh because one of my favorite things is making people break. I love comedians.
Yep, exactly.
I love comedians making other comedians laugh. And I love when actors break. It's one of my favorite things. So it looked like a genuine laugh, but it could have just been him being broad and goofy, right? And then at the end, Gene is talking to his dad about how great Winnie is, and he says something like, she's like a grown-up and a kid at the same time, and I can totally relate to that.
Yes. Do you know what he says right after that?
What?
She's like Pee Wee Herman all the time.
Yes, she's like Pee Wee Herman.
And I was like,
yep.
And I was like, oh, so do I need to figure out an appropriate joke about Winnie going to the local theater or something?
Yeah.
The other thing I did want to mention is at the end, they get home from the baseball game. The family's very happy. And Alyson Hannigan is excited because she's never been to a game or something. And she's really excited by all the baseball verbiage. And so she runs upstairs, and I was like, I remember running up the stairs like that, excited or whatever. And she's like excited that she learned about baseball. And then her older brother's like, man, it's stupid how girls like sports. Let's never take her again. And then he proceeds to say, and Gene, the best part about playing sports is you can peep the girls in the stands.
I didn't.
And I'm like, hell yeah, that's what we want. We want our 10-year-old starting to like, it's like there's a Peanuts special where Charlie Brown refers to like a girl in the stands as the honeypot. And I'm just like, I Googled that and I was like, oh yeah, that's it's like, that was from like a softcore porn guy who got into he like started in sports and he went into the softcore porn.
Ew.
Like famously. And like, that's what all that's from. And it was like right at the time in the Charlie Brown special. I'm like, that's freaking weird, man. But no, apparently that's why you play sports, is so you could pick out the girls you like from the field.
Gross.
Cool. Okay.
Well, it gets worse once you get to episode 4. We'll deal with that later.
But no, because episode 3 has something that I like sincerely liked.
Absolutely. Like, we're going to episode 3, but okay, I'm saying put a pin in your feelings about peeping on girls from the stands. And once you get to episode 4, you'll have a lot more feelings about how gross it is. Yeah.
But okay, so episode 3, let's do it like this, because there's some good stuff in here that we can be like, we can talk about 3 points. Let's give our 3 points, and then we will go back and expand on them. But I just want to get your reaction as I bring up my 3 points from the third one. Blackface joke.
Oh my God. Yes.
Margot Kidder is too ugly for Superman.
Mm-hmm.
And let's do. Okay, fine. And sincere father and son talk.
Okay. So I'm going to pick 3, maybe that you haven't mentioned. So there's a gay joke. Then there's the Playboy joke. I'm surprised you didn't mention the Playboy joke.
I had to pick.
And then there's Bimbo Week, which is just a toss away line.
I missed that
at the end. Yeah. So those are my.
I missed Bimbo Week. Okay. Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. So let's sort of go in as much order as we can and start with the gay joke, which comes after. It seems like the show's being unintentionally progressive in that the third episode is about dad has to go to New York for a wedding with his old law buddies. And he's running down who's going to be there. And it seems like there are women in his law buddy group. In hindsight, they're just accessories for the men. They're just the wives. And the gay joke comes at the end of that. So it's like, I was like, oh, this is a little, women can be low. Oh, nope. There's the gay joke.
Yeah. So the whole point of listing kind of these couples is that the date that he had secured for the wedding canceled on him. And he was just going on and on about, oh, she can talk to these people about this thing and these people about this thing. And then she mentions, dad mentions 2 men about interior design. And I was like, ugh. It's a lazy throwaway joke that the audience, which is not an audience, I suspect, laughs at. It gets a good laugh from the machine. And it's just lazy. It's just lazy.
Yeah. I mean, crappy, it's a joke from when Archie got a little nicer on All in the Family. Like it's a Jefferson's era. Like
She could have talked to Jim and Sam about interior design, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah. So the idea, their dad doesn't think of inviting Winnie to the wedding when his date cancels, which will eventually shockingly get like, we'll talk about the good stuff with that, but leading up to it, it's the kids trying to like set them up as he keeps on going through people he can't get to go on the date with him, including his kid's doctor. And he's like, oh, that's good that you're so professional. You don't date patients' parents. What about your nurse? Is she available?
Yeah, the tall blonde who works in your office.
Ooh, yeah. Like, you're just a fucking creep. And
literally, he's just like grasping. Like he was talking about the woman who canceled, like, oh, she's so smart and she can talk about politics and she can talk about religion and she can talk about interior design. But now he's literally just looking for some hot woman.
And then they make fun of the doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's
the kid
makes Gene's like, why would you want to date a woman who gives people shots? And you're just like, fucking kid, like, what the hell? And
well, again, it's that little kid perspective. Like let's say he's 10 years old, sure. Right? You don't like going to the doctor because
10-year-olds are assholes. That's right.
No, but you don't like to go to the doctor because something bad is going to happen. You're going to get a shot, or you're going to get, you're there to get medicine because you feel bad. People don't go to the doctor when they're feeling good,
I feel like I respected my medical professionals.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
But okay.
Yeah, okay.
But then that leads to
Tina. I think it's Tina.
Yeah, it's Tina. Yeah. They're making, no, actually before that, so the scene starts with Corinne cleaning the fireplace by hand because dad won't leave, so she can't use her magic to do it, which seems like that could be a whole like thing with the show, is that she can never use her magic because he won't go the hell out. But that's when they have the thing about the brother having the fantasy about the two girls.
Oh yeah,
which would be a lot about a 1989 ABC Friday night sitcom having a 16-year-old making basically a porn joke. My note was like, what's the name of that movie from Big Lebowski? Log Jammers? Like, it's that level of like obvious.
Yeah.
Then she comes back in and dad's like, ugh, what you doing, a Tina Turner? Because her face is covered in soot. And I was like, how did this happen?
How did it
happen? And then I was like, oh, it takes place in Connecticut. They're just a bunch of shitty white people. So, I mean, there is that. So there's just racist, rich, white people.
I saw that and I thought, I think I had given a couple things away to you when we were chatting. And, but I purposely did not mention that because I wanted you to experience the shock that I experienced.
You also didn't tell me that the kids regularly walk in on dad jerking off to Playboy. He's not just looking at it, he's like breathing heavy and like, did you write down the full quote?
So I kind of did. So the setup for this is they are preparing dinner for Winnie and their father, the kids, and they're in the dining room, the two adults, and the kids are all in the kitchen talking, oh, how's it going out there, Alyson Hannigan is playing the waitress. There's a very funny joke. I mean, just a goofy kind of vaudeville type joke. That's, they have three things on the menu. One of them is Frank and beans. And the dad's like, I don't know. I like beans and Franks, and I just thought that was cute and goofy. But they go back in. She goes back into the kitchen and Gene, the little kid, is stirring up the pot of Frank and beans, right? And I don't know what the older son is supposed to be doing. Is he serving wine? I don't know. Yeah. And I think one of them asks her, oh, are they out? Is dad the way he gets when he's when we catch him reading Playboy is the quote from Gene, the 10-year-old. And then he said something about sweating and wheezing.
Hell yeah.
It was so gross. And it, again, a 10-year-old, an ABC sitcom.
Yep.
First season, they're going straight in with the sweating and wheezing, looking at Playboy jokes. I thought that was shocking and hilarious, but gross. Hilarious, but gross.
And then
the name of my memoir.
Immediately subsequent to this is the line that the reason Superman never hooked up with Lois Lane, which means they never saw Superman 2, is because Lois Lane is, quote, a dog. What the fuck, man? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, weird. Just like, ew. Like, what the fuck?
That was really gross. Yeah, because they were talking about, Dad was talking about why he doesn't want to date somebody that works for him, which, because
and also it means
he said, well, Superman never dated Lois Lane. Totally
did. Superman 2. So the whole fucking movie is about that. And in fact, anyway. So, and then Winnie and Dad agrees to go with Winnie, and that leads to what actually had me laughing. And if you noticed, there's the laugh track. They have to wait for actual laughs. Like, there was somebody who actually laughed at the joke because Winnie picks out a 80s party dress to wear.
Oh, she looks smoking too. Not to be gross,
yeah, it's great.
But she looks great.
Yeah. And then Dad picks out a dress that would be more appropriate for, I don't know, Margaret Thatcher or Barbara Bush, based on the references in the episode.
I was so happy that she threw Thatcher in there. I don't know who wrote that, but that made me so happy. Because it did look like a Barbara Bush dress.
Yeah.
It really did.
Totally. Yeah. And then I forgot that was a thing in the 80s and 90s, is that we regularly mocked out Barbara Bush dress because it was so terrible. But then Corinne, is it Corinne or Corinne?
I think it's Corinne. Let's go with Corinne.
Corinne has this line where she's like, he makes some comment about the dress, and she's like, yeah, millions of people have seen that dress and they didn't buy it. And I was just like, and then I was like, wait, they have to actually wait for the laugh to finish.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't realize there was actually an audience.
I didn't think there actually was. But I think this whole season, in terms of the jokes, or this episode, in terms of the jokes, I think it found itself in this.
Yes. I wish when I was prepping this, I looked at who actually got the writer credit on this. But of course, it's a WGA, so who knows who actually wrote it. But and so then the episode turns into this whole thing where Winnie doesn't want to go to the wedding because the dad's not going to introduce her as housekeeper because that's not cool enough for his lawyer friends. And she's just like, what's wrong with being a housekeeper, man? You employ one. She's like, nope, I'm out. And so then Dad has this heart to heart with Gene about how maybe you should appreciate the people in your lives when you can appreciate them and, for who they are.
Yeah.
And it actually got me a little. I was like, this is a little bit of a grown up, he's making some observations and,
yeah,
it's all right.
One thing I noticed about that scene, which was fine, there's a little bit of a heartwarming scene, father-child scene in about every episode, was seemingly, and maybe you remember differently, there's no music except when they start having their tender moment. There's a swelling of music around that. And the only other time I remember music, obviously, is the introduction. And then when they're setting up the scene and there's the picture of the house out front and they're kind of zooming in on it, just to kind of get in there. I don't remember any other music except for those heartwarming scenes, but I'll keep my ear out for more. It was sort of makes it gross when it just all of a sudden comes in and there's never been any music before.
It's got to remind the audience that this is what they should be paying attention to.
Yeah. And
then I guess dad and Winnie talk, and he apologizes. And then what did you think of the resolution? I thought it was a total cop-out.
I hated that she ended up wearing the Barbara Bush dress. I hated it.
I hated that, but I hated more that he still didn't fucking take her to the wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty
He
stupid.
took her to play miniature golf and go-karting. And I was just like, what? So they just want, so instead of, going to this thing with your friends where you had a social whatever, you instead took your housekeeper out on a date?
Yeah.
Okay. So
I don't know. It was weird.
The first episode introduced the idea of chemistry between the two of them, but like dad is such a doof. Like, I mean, he's the butt of, I don't know, maybe a quarter of the jokes in some ways, of the kids' jokes for sure.
Yeah.
They're always joking about how dad just doesn't get something.
Yeah.
And so, and so that was a little weird. And then I have an anti-third world joke here. I guess they were making fun of the global South at one point.
I don't remember that.
The dances. He didn't want her doing. He didn't want her doing those dances, which she could not know if she hadn't been out of the sky bottle since 1889. Just saying.
I don't know. I don't know when those dances were developed.
I was going to Google it, but I'm just saying that it seems unlikely that she would have known those things. And then the end has, the older son wants his girlfriend to come over. And I was really hoping to know who I was like, oh, is the girlfriend going to turn out to be like, I don't know who it could have been. Like
Tiffany Amber Thiessen. No.
Right. Yeah. 89. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead, she doesn't get a line, so she doesn't get a credit because, like she'd get paid.
So that brings me to the Bimbo Week thing.
Okay, yes. What is Bimbo Week?
So dad comes home with Winnie. They go upstairs. He's talking to the kid. The kid's like, he's like, oh, are you coming upstairs to go to bed? And he's like, no, dad, it's Bimbo Week and I'm going to finish watching this movie. Da, 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 da. So first of all, it's clearly like an Up All Night sort of reference to those 80s sort of movie things where, it was just bikini girls, whatever, getting eaten by sharks or making out, whatever. But I thought, so Bimbo Week, right? Obviously it's bad, but it's the perfect parody name for something like Up All Night, like with those bad
Bimbo Weekend.
Yeah. With those bad movies that are purely exploitative teenage boy fantasy things. So bad joke, but also a great joke because of the parody element of it. I'm just saying. Not that that's what it was intended to be. I just wrote down, it's the best parody for 80s movie night stuff ever. Bimbo Week.
Bimbo Week.
But yeah.
Wasn't it a horror movie? It was like a schlocky.
Some of those Up All Night movies were schlocky.
But it was like black and white, wasn't it?
I don't think so. I don't think we ever saw it.
We didn't see it? Okay. Mm-mm. But the girl's watching it with him.
Yeah.
So.
And then, whatever. And then, dad goes upstairs and the joke is the girlfriend comes out of nowhere, sets herself down on the couch next to the teen boy. And then the dad calls from downstairs, like, make sure you take your girlfriend home.
Susie something home. Yeah.
Make sure you take Susie home before you come upstairs.
Susie Extra. Take Susie Extra home. Yeah. So I don't know. It's not what I was expecting, obviously. Like, I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was expecting Small Wonder, basically. Oh, okay. I was expecting something along those lines. Because I guess I also didn't realize it was on ABC. So I thought it might be like a syndicated shit show from the 80s, but it wasn't.
And apparently it was the kind of debut of their what was their Friday night lineup?
TGIF, right?
TGIF, yep. That was
the first year? Okay.
It was the first year of TGIF, apparently. Which I thought was interesting because I watched TGIF as a kid and I do not remember this.
I have no memory of this. What's funny is I was watching, a friend of mine was showing me all these like one season wonders, I guess you could say, from the 80s. And there was stuff on there. There's a Corey Haim, Burt Young show. Yeah. Anyway, or I think Burt Young, the guy from Rocky. And I didn't remember it, but I was like, I think I've seen this. I think I watched this when it was on and I was 8 or something. And like this, I have no memory of. But yeah, I watched Family Matters and I watched
Full House.
Yeah. What else was on this apparently?
I don't remember what the first lineup was. I don't think it was even Full House. I'm not even sure. But it was definitely Family Matters.
Yeah. Was it Growing Pains or was it just the 10 of us? Like, and then Step by Step was on there maybe a couple of years later. I don't remember when that started, but yeah. So it's a very,
oh, maybe it wasn't the first one, unless Full House, because Full House started in 87.
I don't think that had TGIF yet. I think that took a while to get.
Okay.
Because wasn't Family Matters a spinoff of?
It was a
spinoff. What was that a spinoff of?
Of something, but let me look at this first. So TGIF started with, no, I don't know. Family Matters, Free Spirit, Just the 10 of Us, Perfect Strangers.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I watched Perfect Stranger.
I did too.
So
what was the other question you had?
That was sort of it, I think.
Okay.
Oh, no. What was Family Matters a spinoff of? Something completely unrelated to this.
Yeah. That's fine. I love these kind of things. So it was a spinoff of Perfect Strangers.
Okay.
Somebody worked for, I think, Larry. I don't remember exactly. It doesn't say in the top, and I'm too lazy to read. Yeah. So my overall, again, this third episode came into its own. I think the jokes landed, and there's still some bad stuff, but it is 1989. Yeah, that's.
But apparently, I've got something to look forward to in episode 4.
Oh my gosh, it's the whole plot. The whole plot is real cringy. I don't even have a lot written down. I might have to watch it again. Okay. Well, I just have a big ew written down. Ew. So
I have like, is it about the boys peeping on a neighbor girl and using Vinny's magic? Okay.
No, he does.
Is it about the dad peeping on a teenage girl?
Oh God, I hope that doesn't happen. No, Winnie does use magic. Okay. More on that next time, I guess.
Next time, yes.
I love Corinne Bohrer. I want her to be my mom. That's it.
Yeah. When we were talking about this, I think before we even started watching it, it was like Corinne B.
Yes.
Bohrer. There was an N in it. There's not?
There's no N. There's
no N? Okay. She's like Lisa Kudrow. It's like if you, I don't remember how I put it, but it's like she was the Lisa Kudrow before there was a Lisa Kudrow type, because, Lisa Kudrow started on Mad About You, and that got her friends, and et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so yeah.
She's a little less manic than Lisa Kudrow. She's quirky and goofy, and she dresses like actually kind of like Lisa Kudrow and Friends. Sort of like the 70s witchy sort of vibe going on. The 1970s, not.
I also did like in this episode, they are establishing sort of her relationship with Alyson Hannigan.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Like, Alyson Hannigan's the one who's like, geez, Dad, you're being a piece of shit. And it's like,
she's pretty much the only one calling him out on
Jean's like, I'm sorry I put you in a position where you had to let a woman speak to you that way, Father. Like, I'll never do that again. Those ladies with their ideas. Yeah. So, but we'll see what we're in store for next.
Great.
Next time.
Episodes 4, 5, and 6.
All right.
Woo! Party. All right.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. And this is the part for your first podcast where you remember that you were actually recording this.
Yeah.
Other people to
not just
to.
having a conversation.
Not just a bullshit about a show. Yeah, exactly. Now we got to make money off of it. So our NFTs will be available at.
I'm not getting into the NFT biz.
free.spirit.nft and. All right. So yes, thanks for listening, and next time on Free Spirit, dun dun dun.
Onesies.